Hey guys, it's Jesus here, and today we're going to be doing a comparison between BF4 and BF3. Now just before we do get into this comparison, I do want to clear a few things up. It may seem like I do have no experience in this game because on PC I am only level 11. This is because I did only just get BF3 for the PC, however on Xbox 360 I'm extremely proficient at this game and I know it inside out. I have over 250 hours gameplay on the Xbox 360, so I kind of do know my stuff even though I am level 11 in this gameplay. Now I also wanted to point out that the games are now comparable, and it's a brilliant time to do this comparison because the netcode patch has literally just been released. This means that we can actually compare BF3 to BF4 in the way it was actually meant to be played. Because previously BF4 just didn't work, and it just meant that you really couldn't compare the two games fairly because BF4 just didn't work as intended. Now, I wanted to point out straight off the bat that I do prefer BF3 to BF4. Now, I might be a little bit biased because in comparison to the way that I play BF4, I am so much better at BF3, it's ridiculous. BF4 I'm just kind of average, whereas in BF3 I'm kind of just absolutely crazy. It's just so much fun when I'm playing BF3 because I go like 50 to 10 in every match. Not that KD matters, but it's just it just makes it a lot more fun when you're beasting everyone else and not dying half as much. So I'm sure that you enjoy the gameplay because it is pretty crazy. Now the first thing that I want to compare is the graphics. Now you can clearly tell that BF4's graphics are much better than BF3's. However, BF3's graphic style is much cleaner than BF4's. Because if you do play BF4 then you'll know that BF4's colour palette is very dry and all the colours just generally seem to blend into each other. This means that it's often very hard to spot your enemies, and it generally means that spamming Q is your only option to find them at distances of longer than 50 meters. Obviously this is a very dirty way of playing, but it is really the only way that you can kill enemies at longer than that range. It does at least prove to us though that Frostbite 3's graphical capability is vastly superior to Frostbite 2's, but at least that means that we know that we can get a perfect looking game in the future. Now I do want to touch on performance quickly. BF3's performance is so much better than BF4's, but obviously there is a lot more stuff in BF4, so it is kind of understandable, but obviously it is a very good thing for BF3. Now one of the main things that I prefer about Battlefield 3 to Battlefield 4 is the way that the movement works and just how fun it is. If you've played Battlefield 4 then you'll know that it does take you a while to get to your maximum speed when sprinting. On BF3 though, on the other hand, you can instantly get to your maximum speed when you're sprinting, which does mean that the game is a lot snappier and a lot more fun to play. In my opinion as well, the entire way that Battlefield 3's movement works is far superior, just the way you can vault over things in a much smoother fashion, it seems to me, than in Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4 just does seem like a very sluggish game, and it just means it is not quite as fun to play. Now BF4 does have some good things going for it however. Battlefield 4 has far superior destruction to Battlefield 3. I'm sure that by now you've all seen the skyscraper on Siege of Shanghai falling down, but to me that's completely uninteresting and it is extremely gimmicky. So that's not the sort of destruction that actually interests me. What interests me is the way that you can destroy fuse boxes, etc. and you know, that sort of thing that actually really affects the gameplay and can make it a lot more tactical. It's also the little things, like when you shoot at the statue that's on Siege of Shanghai, you can see all of the chunks of statue just coming out of it, which is just a really great thing. It does just really add to the immersion. Now one of the hardest things to compare is the weapon balancing, because it depends on what you like. Having an overpowered gun in a game can make it really fun, which sounds really stupid, but it can, because having that M16 within a game can make you feel like a complete badass when you use it. You might deny it, you might actually hate it, but no matter what you say, in BF3 you did really enjoy using the M16. Obviously it's important to have some level of balance within a game, but that one overpowered gun can actually add quite a bit. Whereas in BF4 you don't actually have that overpowered gun, which is good because it means that the balancing is far superior, but it's also bad in the fact that it can mean that sometimes it does get boring and you feel like you're never that kind of god like you can be in BF3 if you use the M16. So overall BF4's balance is far better. I do really prefer that, but I can't deny the fact that having an overpowered gun can add a lot to the gameplay, and I'm not really that annoyed by the fact that BF3's weapon balancing isn't quite as good. One of the biggest differences that makes BF3 a better game is the vehicle gameplay. In BF3, vehicles are much better balanced than they are in BF4. Although tanks are more powerful, there are also less of them, which meant that they weren't going to be killing you continuously, but tanks would actually feel like tanks rather than little marshmallows that could be taken out within a couple of shots from an engineer. In BF4 on the other hand, you die really quickly whenever you get into a tank and you get killed by them all the time, which really wouldn't make sense, but it's the way that the engineer class is designed. Engineers now have so many ways of taking out tanks, it's ridiculous, yet other classes like the assault class also have their own ways of taking out tanks. Both the support and the recon class have C4, which is really good at taking out tanks. Assault now have the grenade launchers, whilst the engineer class has the RPGs and everything they used to have. As Battlefield is such a vehicle-centric game, this is one of the worst things about BF4. BF3 had vehicles right, and that is one of the main reasons that I much preferred BF3. Another thing that we can all agree on is that BF3 Rush actually really works, and it's actually so much fun. BF4 Rush, on the other hand, is disgusting and it just doesn't work at all. In BF3, Rush is by far my favourite game mode, whereas in BF4 I literally never play it. This is mainly due to the way the maps are designed so poorly for Rush, and the MCOMs are just placed in absolutely disgusting places, and as well as the fact that there are 5 players to squad now rather than 4. One of the things that I do like about BF4 though is the fact that they did introduce a new game mode called Obliteration, which I actually really do enjoy. Although for some reason I never play it, I think that's mainly because of the fact that there aren't actually that many people who do play it, which is a shame because I actually think it's a really good game mode. And that is one of the great things about BF4, because they did actually have some innovation with game modes rather than just sticking in random game modes like Air Superiority. Although they did include that in the map pack, which quite frankly wasn't that great. This brings me on to my next gripe that I have with BF4. BF4's maps are actually disgusting, even if you compare them to any of the maps from BF3. BF3's maps were just so much fun generally, they were really well designed, and the way that they worked was just fantastic. If you were to go from playing any of the Aftermath map pack maps to going and playing BF4, you'd just see how much better the BF3 map design was than BF4's. So I hope you enjoyed my reasoning for why I think the BF3 is a much better game than BF4 is. Please tell me in the comment section down below if you agree or disagree. Tell me what your thoughts are on the subject. But for now, I've been TSS, and goodbye.